Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome. If you are in America, good morning and happy 4th of July. I am in Europe right now, so I guess I'm not really celebrating the 4th, and it doesn't feel the same here, And also, I don't. Maybe some of the Europeans that are listening, you could tell me like, do you guys feel weird about the 4th of July, that it's like an annual celebration of us leaving you guys? Like, I was asking my wife about that earlier. I was like, I wonder if they just like look at us and they like scoff, they're like, really? Like they broke up with us like a few hundred years ago, and like every year they just gather and like get hyped and set off like basically just the biggest fireworks we can find. Yeah, I kind of that's what she said. She's like, I don't know why they would care, She's like, I have no, like, why would they care? It doesn't matter. All right. So kind of a running joke, but it's not so funny. But every single time I go on a trip, like I leave the country, I go to Florida, the market just it just reminds me that I'm not allowed to do that. Uh thank you guys. Thank you guys for all the comments. Yeah. But no, look, I'm I'm kind of a workaholic. By the way, I'm sorry. I've been fighting a little something since I've been here. So if you keep hearing me cough a little bit, um, yeah, that's what's going on. But yeah, I'm a bit of a workaholic, and it's tough for me to totally it's tough for me to totally unplug. I take full responsibility for what the market's doing because every time I leave and I try to go on a trip, this happens. So once again, this is my fault. I bear the responsibility for the red in the market. Okay, it's my fault. You guys can blame me. I'm sorry about that. Um, but I wanted to show up here today because it's like the last thing I want to do is not be there for you guys, our loyal audience, the BB Discord. And I figure I'm limited on time, so normally I would just do like a private Discord call or something, but I don't know how much time I'm going to have today. I might have 30 minutes, I might have 3 hours. Most of my family is at lunch right now, so we'll see how extended their lunch is. Because when they get back, I'll probably have to hop off. So I was like, you know what? I don't know how much time I'm gonna have. We need to just get rolling. So what I was hoping to do today, yeah, it looks like we got some people popping in here. Wow, nice little audience for a random stream. Yeah, I've missed you guys too. I've missed you guys. What I was hoping to do is just kind of talk about some higher time frame levels because one, that's the first step in that's the first step in a drawdown and a portfolio drawdown is to start marking out high time frame levels. I'm kind of joking about it, but it is actually, it can be effective. So I wanted to just one, kind of be there. Let's dive into this together. You guys, I'm sure, have some questions. I'm not as in tune with the market as I should be because I've been away from my normal routine. So I need to do a little bit of catching up myself. So I'm hoping that I will make some discoveries, provide give myself some needed clarity because I've had a lot of trading view alerts go off, but I haven't been at my desk, right? So it's like that awful relationship of like I need to get to work, but I'm literally walking around the streets of Europe right now with a fussy, tired baby here for a wedding. So not ideal conditions for this to be happening, but we carved this out. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. But I think I'm just going to kind of start by doing some higher time frame stuff, mark out some levels, explain to you guys kind of my general thoughts on what I think might happen next. And guys, the truth is, like I said, I've been away from my desk. I'm gonna make some discoveries probably here live, right? Like I've got a week's worth of charting to catch up on. A lot of the levels that I was watching, unfortunately, have been hit, and some of them sliced through. Some of them are holding. So we're gonna do this together live here. Let's see if this looks good. Bottom left, upper right. I don't know where do you guys think my face looks better here, upper right or bottom left? You guys let me know. I'm in Denmark right now. I haven't I guess I haven't really told anybody. No reason in particular, but I'm in Denmark right now. So I am hanging out in Denmark. Upper right. All right, we're gonna leave it upper right. And guys, you know the routine. If at any point during the stream you guys enjoy it, you want to show some love and support, hit that like button. All right, hit that like button. So let's start with Bitcoin here. We'll talk about this range, and then we will probably zoom out a little bit, right? Because I like to start bigger and then kind of get smaller and zoom in a bit. So here's the deal, guys. Like this, as far as here's the thing. I was playing this level like it was our range low, okay? And this entire time, I have been treating this like a deviation, all right? Now, maybe that's incorrect, right? And it's important, you can move the goalpost a little bit, right? But you don't want to move the goalpost too much, right? So like I've seen some traders that I respect saying that, oh, this was actually the range, right? That's not how I was playing this, right? So if this is the range, that's entirely different than, what I was playing. And I could have been wrong about having, this level. I'll just make this blue and I'll make this blue just so we can kind of identify. So this blue line I had this as my range low. I had this as a deviation, and, this was my range high. And, I was expecting, and I have it in, my Discord. Maybe I have some tweets. I can't remember where I put all this stuff. I tweet so much these days, but I was really focused on this right here initially. So I was focused on this level when we were up in this region, right? I said publicly, like, hey, I really want and potentially even need to see like this play. Like I want to see a clear higher time frame, higher low form. I wanted us to come back into this daily inefficiency. We could have maybe gone down, a little bit lower into this order block, something like that would have been fine. But I really wanted to see this daily FEG hold. And I wanted to see without any question, like, here we go. Like this was, deep value. We came back, we did what we needed to do, deviation below our range low, and we hold here. I said this, I've got a message in my channel, my Discord. I was like, look, guys, like this is kind of like a must hold. Like I don't really want to see too much lower than 63, right? It wouldn't be like a death sentence if we came back down to retest my range low of 60. But I really wanted to see like, I mean, you could maybe even call this like some sort of, descending whatever, right? Like I'm not super hot on like the normie patterns. They kind of work sometimes, but like some bullish whatever, but basically like range, deviation, reclaim, very, very clear right here. Markup, retest, demand. I wanted to see this, okay? We did not get that, okay? Now that doesn't mean that we're necessarily doomed, right? But it does mean that like my range is, as I was playing it, is kind of not valid. Okay, I hate to say it, but let's keep it moving here. So obviously this happened. We nuked down here, potentially another deviation, come back up. This was the level to flip, right? Like we needed to flip this, this level, and it was kind of, you can maybe even tighten it up, like right here. We were going to want to flip this level, not even an FEG, just like get back above, do something like this and then move up. Now the unfortunate part is obviously we've done the exact opposite of that. Like we have come back up to the level we needed to flip. Once again, sellers are clearly in control. And now we are well below our range low. Now I had this as our range. Okay. If I'm wrong and that wasn't our valid range, and our valid range really should have been this the whole time, which I can see a case for that. But again, that's not how I was playing it this entire time. Right. So like at this point, I'm kind of like, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I could throw on some 3/4 ranges here as well. You could see there is really clean interaction with this, 0.25 level and 0.75 levels. Decent. Okay, decent. But if this is truly our range, obviously this would be range low. You'd want to see this hold for sure. But again, this is not how I was playing it, right? So I'm kind of regurgitating information that, I've seen other traders that I do respect, how they're playing it. And by the way, this is still a valid range. So let's entertain this scenario, which was not my base case, right? But now it's a little bit combination of like, hey, my levels gave out. One, did I have it wrong? Two, still kind of trying to make it work, moving the goalpost a little bit without totally like disrupting the initial plan, right? You can move the goalpost a little bit, just not too much, right? If this is our range, right? So let's just do this here. Let's do range high, range low. If this is our range, and I was also opposed to this. Like I also was pretty loud about like this not being the case, and it's possible I just didn't want it to be the case, right? You have to be okay kind of checking yourself, because like, yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Like I have the same emotions as I did when I was a beginner. I just know how to handle them better now, right? But I was presented with this case. I think, you know, people on Twitter mentioned it. People in comments on the YouTube streams have mentioned it. Other traders that I respected mentioned it, and I kind of like scoffed at it. Was like, no, we're not going to range for that long. Like, of course not. You know, we're going to go up, right? You don't want that to happen. And also there were some levels that suggested that maybe we didn't need to, but you know, going over here, like it's possible that we are doing something like this, right? And again, this was not my original base case, you know, but here we potentially are, right? So I find this interesting. Here, actually, let me do this. So this is on Bitstamp. I don't know why I'm charting on Bitstamp, but here we are. Bitcoin USD. Let's throw that up. We're on the daily. I'm just going to put them side by side just so we can see them clearly. And so yeah, see, this is what I was originally looking for, was like this. These are old drawings, right? Obviously did not happen. I didn't take any like new positions. I've just been holding, you know, I've got my positions that I've been holding for months and months on end. But obviously it still makes sense to mark out all the higher time frame levels and things of that sort. So it's possible that we are doing something like this right over here, okay? And again, this was not my original idea, but at this point, I feel like it's kind of a last stand hope for the bulls to do something like this. Otherwise, and again, we'll talk about, you know, what that scenario maybe looks like, where bulls have just, you know, they're really in the wrong, and we'll talk about that too. I would say it's a little premature to like, you know, call it over or anything like that, but we're going to talk about that too. So this is, in my opinion, kind of your last stand. And I actually see some very, there are some similarities. First, let's talk about the timing of it. Okay. So from this level, and this is back when Bitcoin was ranging between 25 and 31K, from April to October of 2023, right? So let's take a look here from the timing. Okay. And I'm going to mark it here just with these two red dots. So Bitcoin was in this range, or entered this range, formed the range high. So basically from range high, so this red dot, all the way until when it finally, without any question, broke out of it, 192 days, right? Like that was a long, long range. So let's just see what that would take us to potentially over here. So from range high, which is now our all-time high on Bitcoin, 192 days would take us, oh my, see, this is what I didn't want, right? Into September. So I don't think it would be the exact same, right? Because like, for one, these ranges are different, right? They're always similar, but they're different, right? So in this range from, you know, October through, or I'm sorry, April through October, obviously this one was a little bit more textbook distributive. Like we actually had like a final bull trap, which is typically what you see. Like, for example, and this is why I still don't think this is really like, let me just get this out there right now. I do not think that this cycle's over, even if we break down. I think we're just going to have like a double peak, like a 2013 style or something. When you get like a high time frame distribution, like you typically get like a final like bull trap, something like that, you know, like in here, like the 69K 1-2, like final bull trap. Like we didn't have that final stand up here. We didn't have that like we did over here. So this one actually felt more distributive to me. And if you guys will remember at the time, maybe some of you that followed me or were, you know, in the BB community, like we were shorting this region hard because of this sweep, right? Because of how distributive it looked. And it ended up not, you know, finishing the breakdown. So we flipped long, like right around here. Like right in this region, we flipped like really, really long. Because like when we saw this wasn't breaking down, like distribution failed, you know, failed breakdown. We haven't had a textbook, you know, bull trap here, right? So this is, if this does end up breaking down, this time actually, in my opinion, is different. Like we didn't get that textbook bull trap like we typically see. And by the way, we typically see that to the downside as well, right? Like like FTX, right? I know it was a black swan or whatever, but like, you know, you had a very textbook like trap. Like typically, you know, when you're marking a high time frame bottom or top, like you get like that final exhaustive deviation. Okay. And here, like lower time frame, right? Little trap here, then we nuked. So I'm just saying, like, typically that's what you see. We haven't seen that. So it can be different, right? Doesn't always have to be. But it's possible getting back to, I don't want to get too sidetracked, right? It's just been a while since it's been a while since we've done this. So we have a lot of catching up to do, a lot of TA to do together. So guys, do me a favor. If you're enjoying the stream, drop me a like either on Twitter or on YouTube. Again, thanks for being here. All right. So it's possible we're doing something like this. If we are, and again, similarly, like we don't have to go, you know, just like we didn't have to go up here and put in this deviation, we ended up holding here. We could, in theory, put in a deviation here, you know, which would have been different than over here. We're looking to kind of draw inspiration from previous periods of time rather than like one-to-one parity. Fractals never play out perfectly, but you know, you can capture the spirit of the move. So if this did happen, you know, I would probably be looking for, you know, something like this at this point, right? Even kind of similar microstructure, right? Not exactly the same, but like little bounce, something like this. So it's possible, you know, this is, I mean, we'll see, right? Like, I don't want to be too quick to to try to call the bottom yet, you know, but it's possible this is where we're at, right? We're gonna know more. We're gonna know more soon. You know, it's a tough spot to be in, guys. Like it's awkward. You never know until it plays out, right? But I would say at this point, this is kind of the bull case, right? The bull case is something like this, right? We'll just overlay it. Again, it will not be perfect, but we're looking, that's not even a copy on there. Basically something like this, okay? Like we would need to get back up in here, probably, you know, put in a little like, you know, for the head and shoulder boys, you know, something like this. And then over here, end of summer, we'd probably move up, right? Unless something crazy happens and we get like a very swift buyback, you know, before this weekly close. But this is probably what you're staring down the barrel of, right? Because we didn't hold this region, you know, which really would have been ideal, you know, to come down here, you know, and do something like this, right? But we just didn't do that. So now this kind of pushes things back a little bit for me, no question. Unless we get a, you know, a very swift buyback. But this is generally what I'm looking at. Okay. All right. Let me see if we have any. Let me see if we have any questions or comments here. I haven't really even been looking at the chat. Let's see here. Wow, we got a good amount of people watching. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I didn't know if we were going to get a big audience. It's kind of early in the US, and yeah, just kind of popped this up super last minute, but it's cool. I'm glad we could do this. All right, let's go back here. Good to see you guys too. We'll talk about Pepe, I promise. Okay. Some funny comments in here. Yeah, German government is selling. I did see that. Appreciate you coming on a holiday. Absolutely, man. All right. Just kind of registering all the comments, then we'll get back to it. All right. Yeah, we'll talk about all the memes, guys. We'll definitely talk about all the memes. Those weren't Uggs. I got roasted for those shoes, guys. You guys lit me up. I was wearing Birkenstocks, and you guys lit me up on that, man. You guys did not like the Birkenstocks with the socks. I had no idea. I had no idea that the Birkenstocks with socks was such a no-no. You guys are roasting me with those. All right. We're gonna take a step back now. I wanted to just kind of dissect what was going on, like what you should ultimately be hoping for if you're a bull here at this level. So I wanted to talk about the local, but honestly not so local range, given that we've been here for like over 3 months now, almost 4 months. But yeah, let's take a step back. Let's actually zoom out a little bit further and do some real high time frame analysis here, because I want to provide some higher time frame context. Like I do not think that we are at a cycle top at all, but this is something that we have seen before to a degree. Which chart do I have it saved on? Probably this one, Bitcoin USD. I don't know what this is. I don't know what that is. All right. Let's see here. Let's throw on the halvings. I got a lot of drawings for this. And I'm on my my laptop, so normally I can kind of stretch this out a little bit more to provide more detail. But it is not uncommon to, it is not uncommon to have some turbulence after Bitcoin halving. Now, obviously, like the fundamental reason as to why that would be is miners get absolutely just the short end of the stick, right? So one day to the next, miner revenue effectively gets cut in half, assuming Bitcoin's price remains stable. So there's a lot of miner selling. People kind of factor that in. There's probably more de-risking, and this sell-off might not be all miner selling. I know there is some miner capitulation happening, which is verifiable. I think there's a lot of other stuff going on right now. But yeah, we're just going to kind of talk about the TA generally, because I mean it's a little bit subjective at this point, like where most of the selling is coming from. Well, it is quantifiable, right? It is measurable. I will say this: I don't know where the majority of the selling is coming from. I've seen speculation, right? But let's zoom in and take a look at like what typically happens after a Bitcoin halving. Okay. So even going back to the first Bitcoin halving, right? Let's just kind of look at this right here. So from the from the high that was set before Bitcoin halving. Okay, let's mark this out. So here's the high set before a Bitcoin halving, and let's just kind of keep moving here. All right. So here was a very prominent high set before a Bitcoin halving. We're going to keep moving. I'll just kind of say it was here. Like that was a pretty big high, right? Like you zoom back in here. Like that was a nice rally going into the Bitcoin halving, and then we spent a while ranging, right? Let's keep moving. I would say we've had a very prominent high right into the Bitcoin halving, kind of typical as to what we see. Now let's do a time-based study here on from when we set that prominent high marked by the blue dot right before Bitcoin halving, how long until Bitcoin really got cooking. Okay, just to set the stage, because like I feel like people have kind of forgotten that like we had just had a Bitcoin halving. So I would say that like until this area, I would mark this out as we just had, this is when like we exited this, reaccumulation into a Bitcoin halving. And we really started going parabolic, like we had a bull market, whatever you want to call it. So roughly 150 some days, right? Depending on where you want to measure it from, from when we set a prominent high before a Bitcoin halving to when we finally exited the range, 150 plus days, first Bitcoin halving. All right, let's go over to the second one. I would say that during the 2016-2017 cycle, from this prominent high before Bitcoin halving, I would say until at least right here, you could maybe make the case even over here. I would say it was right here, truthfully. It was 186 days from this prominent high. We had a sell-off into the halving, very typical. Start moving back up, and then, again, 186 days later, we are starting our parabola. Okay, so this one took 186 days. That was the second Bitcoin halving. Let's take a look at last cycle. All right. So prominent high set right before Bitcoin halving. We actually have sell-off and quite a bit of turbulence right after. Again, every cycle is a little bit different. But I would say and argue that we really didn't start cooking until like October. All right. So prominent high before Bitcoin halving. And this was weird, right? Like we had COVID, so kind of hard to articulate like what would price have looked like if that didn't happen. It doesn't really matter, right? Point being is there was garbage price action for 171 days from the high set before the halving through the halving. Okay. So kind of a typical theme, right? Like first three cycles, halvings, 12 months out, great. Right around the halving, kind of junky, right? Like a little bit junky for sure. So let's take a look right here. Where are we at right now? Prominent high set before a Bitcoin halving. We're at 111 days, right? So if we go back and we look at the previous the previous amount of time it took to really start cooking, 153 days, 186 days, 171 days. I mean, that might be on average, let's just say 170 days, give or take. I don't know what the exact, you can just quickly do it, but just say 150 and 180 days, right? So let's take a look at this. Where would that take us out to? Again, prominent high before Bitcoin halving, 170 days. I guess short side 150 would take us to August, 180 days take us out into September. So again, kind of bodes with that idea or that theory, like, look, typically we need like 4 or 5 months ish at least, from a prominent high set before a Bitcoin halving. People get excited going into it. We sell off, junky price action, but ultimately it's not a death sentence for the cycle. It's just, aggressive sell-offs. And like, if we take a measured move, we can remove this now. Like what percentage pullbacks have these been? I'm going to skip the first cycle just because, you'll get the point. But from this first, from this first big sell-off from a prominent high before Bitcoin halving in 2016, Bitcoin went down 40%, right? Let's keep it moving. Again, this was a little bit weird, right? Like, I don't even know where we want to measure this from. Like, it was really choppy, but I mean, I guess here, like 15%, or, if we want to go to like the low point, maybe 20, or, if you want to go from like, this is kind of backwards, right? From like, if we viewed this as a whole range, like what is the range, range high to range low? Like, even though we're doing it backwards, like how big was the range? 30%. And again, we're doing it backwards, so it's kind of cheating, but if we want to do it just from high to low, following the chart left to right, which is probably how you should do it, 21%, right? But if you want to just view like what was the range of the garbage price action, even if we do it backwards, roughly 30%. Okay. So where are we at right now? Interesting, we still are holding the low that was set in April for now. We'll see if it ends up holding, but 23%. So maybe if we did follow suit, 30% could take us down to low 50s. Like we haven't had a pullback that big in a long time. Let me remove these now. We don't need them. And that's something that I talk about quite a bit, is like there is measurably diminished volatility to the downside. Like going all the way back for Bitcoin to 2022 even. I mean, look at these pullbacks the whole way, right? Like 22.5% was this one. Right here, 20%. Let's keep it moving. All right, that's 21%, right? And now we'll keep it moving again. More recently, 21%. All right, let's see where we're at right now. So this range so far, 23%. So this was our biggest pullback. And I guess if we view this as like a second pullback within one, right? Like from that last high, we're down 20%. So I guess maybe like 23% would take us down to 55. I don't know. I mean, I've been subscribing to the idea that, I mean, for the past few years, 2 years at least, we haven't had the same type of downside for Bitcoin that we have had historically, but that doesn't mean that we can't, right? It doesn't mean that we can't. It just means that we haven't, right? So something to consider, no doubt. No doubt. All right, let's see here. Just checking the chat. Haven't seen it in a while. I don't have my big monitor, so I can't read all the comments while I'm doing the TA, unfortunately. All right. All right. All right, all right, all right. Okay. All right, guys. Let's keep it moving here. Let's keep it moving. All right. Let me make sure. Can you guys see me and hear me okay? The Wi-Fi here is not, I mean, it's okay. It's not amazing. Just want to make sure you guys can hear and see okay. All right. All right, good. Thanks, guys. All right. So let's take a look at some higher time frame stuff, right? And mark out some levels. So like if this range doesn't hold here, right? And I mean, look, at this point, it always feels really heavy coming into range low, right? If it doesn't hold here, like what would I expect? Okay. What would I expect? Um, Here's what I'm really hoping that we don't do, right? Like I'm hoping, so this is all the ETF pump right here. Like this has been like Bitcoin ETF started trading and like this is the ETF pump. I'm really hoping that we don't retrace that. Like that would be so like yeah, I mean that would I'm not planning for that, right? I'm just saying like if we did lose this range, and things got really nasty, like I don't want to see us give back the ETF pump. Like we could come down a little bit more, that's fine, but I do not want to see us down here like at all. Again, it doesn't mean that it can't happen. It's just like I just do not want to see that. That would be really, really, really bad. Um, that would be bad. But what I'm looking for is probably it seems like this is kind of a hot level at this point. It seems like a lot of people really want this level, and I see why, right? Like I definitely see why. This seems like a very hot level. I guess I could see the perfect retest coming, but there's another part of me that almost wants to see a front run a little bit. Like if my idea on how this range was trading is the wrong idea, and really this is the range, right? Which I'm open to, right? This was not my idea. My idea was my idea was that like this was your range basically, and this was a deviation. Some other people that I think are very talented were viewing this as the range, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. If this is the case, you could look for something like this actually being your deviation, which again, it was not my original idea. I was thinking this was our deviation, right? So it's just a different way to look at it. If this is going to be like a range deviation, if the range does break, then you wouldn't want to see this get hit. This, in my opinion, this green box, low 50s would be this would get into like we've lost the range territory rather than deviation. I typically, when I see a deviation, I like to see it just kind of like a little bit lower and then reclaim. Like I wouldn't want to see this. That would be, well, okay, first of all, I drew it reclaiming, right? I wouldn't want to see this because then that kind of makes me think we're gonna like roll over, okay? Which I'm not trying to be a doomer. I'm just like talking levels, okay? But like if this is our range, which I could see a case being made for this being the range, then I probably want to see this level get front run and maybe we bottom out at like 55, 54, and that ends up being a deviation because then you could kind of spin this bullish then, right? If this is a valid range, which I don't know if it is or not, like that's not how I was playing it, but at the same time, like I said, some people that I do respect were playing it like this, so we'll give it the benefit of the doubt for now. And additionally, we're we're trying to figure out how to, we're in longs, right? I'm in longs. I'm looking for not like confirmation bias, right? Or it's more just like, is there still a chance that this is bullish? Even though we're looking heavy into a potential range low, right? That's what we're looking for, right? Because it's possible I was approaching this range wrong, right? Because I had seen people draw it like this too. So if we are going to be bullish, again, I don't want to see this little cluster here get tagged, because that doesn't feel like a deviation to me. Not that it couldn't, right? But that feels more like we've lost the range because of how deep it is below. Like the range low here is at 56.5. If we went down to like 51, 52, that doesn't feel like deviation territory. Like that's heavy. So again, this is kind of like the bullish range hope, right? This is your hopium. Like this is your range. Max had his range too tight. It was around here. We're hoping that this is the valid range, right? And it's totally possible that this is. So we'll keep an eye on it, but I do not want to see this cluster get tagged. Like as obvious of a level as it is, I don't want to see that. It just feels a little bit deep to me. But yeah, we'll keep a close eye on it. Let's move over to USDTD. I actually we could just talk about this. I actually still have it drawn here, so we could, maybe I want to redraw it. No, let's just do this. All right. So yeah, all right, let's do this. Let's talk about it first. So this is USDTD. It is not inverted now. I flipped it back. So let's delete this. So for those of you that have been following along with my content, and then because Bitcoin for a while, you know that there is a very respected, prominent, immediate, and noteworthy correlation between USDT dominance and crypto asset prices. And obviously the implications and the reason for that is, people go back and forth between volatile crypto assets and stable coins, and Tether being the largest stable coin, obviously is going to be the most important one. So I'll just quickly put up something on the bottom so you guys can see the relationship, and then we'll dive into the specifics of what I really kind of need to see here at this point. But here's Bitcoin, so you can see right here, USDTD goes down. This is a percentage right now. So just think of this as a pie chart, right? Like it's at 5.45%. Just think of a pie chart. Tether makes up 5.45% of the crypto pie. All right. So when USDT dominance moves down, Bitcoin is moving up, right? It happens every single time, like Bitcoin moving down, USDTD moving up, like perfect negative correlation. It is not up for debate. It always happens. It's not even like a subjective thing. It's just like people hold Tether or they hold crypto, right? So when I look at this chart, right, let me actually remove these dots. We can always redraw these. Don't like them. And I will also just kind of redraw these so we can talk about it. USDTD has been in this channel for a while, right? And it's got a negative correlation with price. So it's the opposite. How I've been viewing what we're doing right now is basically a bearish retest, right? I've been viewing this as we've been in this channel right here for, a long time, since 2020. So boom, boom, boom. Again, it's called like every major top and, major bottom for crypto, and we didn't quite make it here, but pretty close, right? For crypto, going all the way back to this when it was formed, over here in 2020, some interaction with the mid range of this channel, right? And let me put total down below. So this is all of crypto right now. Oops. This is all of crypto right now. So I'm showing you guys this because I want to show you, like, this is, in my opinion, one of the more important charts in crypto, obviously. And it's also very, very significant because if this is invalidated, what it implies, right? So let's do this. We'll mark out these same levels, these same times for when USDTD was playing around in this channel for price. And we'll put it in green, right? Because USDT dominance is in green. So here's the low. Again, that lines up. You can see the crosshairs. It lines up perfectly. Here's our bottom. It's top. It was kind of like this whole region, right? But you get it. 69K top, right? And then this first bottom right over here. And then FTX nuke right here. And then something very significant happened, over here when we actually, and I'll put this in like a different color, right? I'll put this in like, let's just put this in like the most obvious different color out there. So let's look at this right here now. And I'll move this up so we can move to existing pane above. All right. Give ourselves a little bit more drawing room. So what was so significant is I was viewing this as a channel break, right? Like we broke out of this multi-year, I guess bearish channel for USDTD. We came back, we retested it perfectly here in April, and price bounced as well, right? So what I was really looking for, and I wouldn't say it's invalidated yet, but we're getting close, right? So like hang in there. What I was really looking for is like this and, maybe a little bit more chop, but ultimately like another drop, and USDTD down, sub 3%. And I still think it's on the table, right? But like this was a very significant break right here. Like this channel, call it voodoo. You could tell me you disagree with it. You don't like TA, whatever. There's not really any denying the significance of it for whatever reason that it does work. Like I don't question why things work. I just try to find things that have worked, patterns that have played out. And, we could talk and debate about why it works or why it doesn't work, right? But the point is, like, it has, whether you think it's voodoo or, astrology for grown men, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't really matter. The point being is it has called some very significant inflection points after, prominent highs and lows for crypto going back to 2020 again. So whether it's a joke to you or not, like here it is. Here's the data. You can't be upset about the data. It's just charts. So I was looking at this like, look, this is a bearish retest. Like this thing is cooked. Like this is gonna nuke, right? We lost a multi-year channel going back to 2020. We lost it. Obviously, USDTD goes down, crypto goes up. Like we're gonna rip. Right. And now we're kind of back here sliding a bit. We're still retesting the channel. Okay. So to be clear, this is not like invalidated yet. And on top of that, we have, this very significant, SR region. I would say it's more like right around here. You could maybe even like tighten it up where, maybe it's like kind of this region where it's like just the wicks, but like this whole region, right? Let's bring this down. We'll move this for now. We can bring it back up in a second. So like this whole region was so significant as well for USDTD, where, it called this was the summer bottom after the first peak, last bull market, another significant, rejection here. And then we finally broke through it, rejection, in the bear market. And then finally busted through it, retest, and then now we're kind of like questionably retesting it, right? Like we're kind of in this weird transition zone for it where like clearly this zone, and I'll make this box a different color. Clearly this zone is a significant one for tether dominance, right? Like the amount of highs and lows that have been formed around this red box, we could tighten it up, we could broaden it a little bit, right? It's significant, right? And we're in that zone. So like this is the zone that it really needs to continue to play if we want to be bullish here. Like we're going to need to see we're going to need to see it kind of roll over. And by the way, it's not invalid, right? It's like we're being pressured here, like no question. Like we're being your conviction is being tested. Like people think it's over. I think most people are like, those people are very, very fearful. I'm a little bit fearful, right? Like you don't want to see what you're seeing right now, but as long as you can kind of lean into the data and like, approach it from like an ultra high time frame perspective and say to yourself, like, okay, range low always sucks. Bull market corrections always suck, but like, let's look at historical patterns and really determine like if this is cooked or not. Okay. So I'm still looking at this as like, this is a very significant SR level, you know, and we're in it and it's big. And I really hope we don't come all the way back up to the top of it. Like we should be kind of capped around here. We shouldn't go back up to 6%. Like, let me delete this and actually, I think you guys have seen enough of this. Let's remove these drawings and we'll just kind of look at it. You should understand it enough at this point because we just went over it. But like I'm looking at this right here and like let's flip this, right? So this is flipped right now. So again, like understand what we're looking at here. But when I look at this chart flipped, right, and we want it to go up because it is inverted, I look at this like our range high. Here, I can go down to the lower time frames a little bit here. Maybe the 3-day would look good. So I would view this as like, oh, this was your despair zone, right? Like very clear range low, you know, kind of region right here. Here's a very clear range. We were here for, you know, 500 days. Retesting the range high. Here's, you know, very clear demand. You can maybe tighten it up a little bit if you wanted to, something like this, but let's just include the whole thing right now. Why not? So we'll call this just, you know, call it mega demand, right? Like if you were just trading an altcoin and this wasn't tether dominance, you know, I would look at this and say, all right, this is a brutal, but very valid range high retest, like first range high retest after breakout. If this was just like altcoin USD, pick any altcoin, what I would be looking for here is like, all right, you know, we've taken out this, you know, this low right here. I would be looking for, you know, maybe a perfect retest this range high, maybe even like a deviation below, you know, I hate to say it, you know, bear trap. And then I'd be looking for like this, you know, and then we could also draw a trend line. Like if this was just, again, altcoin USD, I would be looking at it like this. This is where my head goes. And here, let me even just remove this. I'll draw an actual range on there. This is the first place that my head goes, right? As I just view this, you know, maybe we could do this. Yeah, let's do this. I view this like a range. And again, you could maybe bring it left and do something like this if you wanted to. But you get the point, right? Like there's a few different ways to go about doing this, but this is how I would view it. So what's happening right now is potentially the first, you know, retest of our range high after, let's see how long we were here. And again, I'm just doing this to help provide perspective on how I still think that this is bullish. We were here for 622 days, right? So we were in this range for 622 days. I mean, look how this trades too. Like you can even draw trend lines here. Like this works, you know, like you can chart tether dominance and it works. Okay. I promise you, I've spent a lot of time doing it. It does work. So, you know, I would look at this like we built demand here at our previous range high. And this is a brutal retest of a range high, but this is a bullish looking chart. Like even if it sucks and it's, you know, altcoin USD, again, we're just doing this to provide perspective. Say poopcoin USD. Okay. It's any random shit coin out there. All right. This is a bullish chart. So view this as hopium, view this as copium. Like if I was looking at this chart, I'd be like, hey guys, you know, I'd probably be looking for longs, like, you know, right around, you know, this region right here. I'd probably put my stop. You know, I wouldn't want to see us go below that low. And, you know, I'd probably be targeting, you know, one of these highs right here, at least like at minimum back up to the highs here. But ideally, I'd probably want to see like this supply tested, you know, kind of up here. So I'm looking at this like, you know, if this was Poopcoin USD, this is the trade setup that I would be looking for. So just providing some perspective, right? Like it, even though it feels heavy, like it's not all bearish, you know, and like here's the evidence, you know, like it's not all bearish. It actually, there are some pretty bullish charts out there, despite how heavy it feels right now. So I hope you guys can see, and I hope you guys are following this too. Like if you're not, let me know. I'm going to catch up on some comments here, just because I haven't been looking at it. Um, Thank you, Benj. Benj says, just logged in and glad to be in the Discord because your commitment, Max. Of course, man. I can't promise I will always be right, but I will always be here. I will always work my hardest. I will always be honest and transparent with you guys and do what I can to help. So appreciate the support, Benj. It's great. We're in Europe. I'm in Denmark right now for a wedding. Go back to the US and resume the pump soon, very soon. Um, I missed you guys too. All right. Yep. Happy 4th to those in the US. All right. All right, yeah, we're gonna get into some specifics as well. Like we can talk about. I know a lot of people want to talk about like Pepe and stuff, so we can get into some of those. All right, just a quick reminder, guys. If you guys are enjoying the content, do me a favor, hit that like button. All right, hit that like button. Whether you're watching on Twitter or you're watching on YouTube, it really helps support us if you could do that. Again, thanks for being here, guys. All right. So one thing that perpetually throws me off is ETH BTC, and I don't know if this is just like short-term strength that's coming out of uh, the spot ETF that's going to start trading for Ethereum, presumably within the next couple weeks, unless they continue to kick the can down the road. But this is a bullish looking chart. Not that it couldn't turn bearish, right? But typically you don't see like Armageddon for crypto and ETH BTC holding up. So this is one curveball here that I'm having a tough time with, because it's like I look at Bitcoin, right? And it's okay for now, right? Like this is either a valid range and we're just, freaking out at range low, which has happened, right? Everybody's been there. um, or we've already lost our range low and this is a cope range and this is the range, and we're going to find that out soon, right? We'll just be patient and wait. But I look at the weekly, right? And it's heavy, it's real heavy. Like this doesn't look great. It looks like it wants lower, which is always what crypto does at range low. It looks like it wants lower. And maybe it's as simple as this, and then I'm going to go back to ETH BTC, right? Like I love my favorite time frame FEG is the monthly FEG, guys. Like don't fade the monthly FEG. Monthly FEGs are absolutely elite. Like look at this right here. The midpoint of FEGs on the monthly time frame. I'm just giving a quick example here. Like look at called the FTX bottom. Let's see, there's another one that was really good here. Yeah, I think it called the USDC FUD and SVB FUD right here as well. I'm going to zoom in on these just so you guys can see them. So these are two of my favorite examples. I'm just showing you guys like what I'll get to the point, right? But my favorite time frame FEG is the monthly. So look at these two. So this one was from over here. Now I'm on the daily just to show you. Literally called the FTX bottom. Like if you had bid the mid range of this monthly FEG, you would have basically sniped the bottom within a few hundred points. If during the SVB, Silicon Valley Bank collapse, you bought the midpoint of this monthly FEG, you would have sniped the bottom of that as well. So again, I love the monthly time frame FEG. So here we are again. There's another one right here. So again, going back to the monthly, we'll take a look at where we're currently at. There is a very prominent monthly FEG that we partially mitigated in May, but we didn't come down to the midpoint. I don't know what it is, man, but like price just loves that midpoint. Like price loves the mid-range of a monthly FEG. I don't know why, but it just does, guys. It just does. Like you can go back and test it yourself. Like it just loves it. There's more examples throughout. Like right here's another beautiful one. Like it's never perfect, right? But like it gets pretty close, So I don't know. Don't fade the monthly FEGs, guys. It's spooky, but it does work. Bullish and bearish. So looking at this, right, if we were to just, continually tag the midpoints, just like we did over there, where would that take us, right? Potentially down here to like 54, give or take. So if this was, and here I'll label this and make it bigger. Monthly FEG 20, right? So, and I'll go back to ETH BTC, I promise. I just want to kind of mark this out. So if this is our range and Max's range was wrong and this is the range, then maybe you do have your case for like kind of this being a perfect little, deviation. And then, you bounce out of the midpoint of this monthly FEG at 54-ish, reclaim the mid-range, and then, send it. But I don't know. Like we got to see what happens here. So let's go back to ETH BTC because I want to talk about why this chart's throwing me off. I'm just going to check the comments real quick. All right, hang on. Yeah, I just grabbed a picture I tweeted for the thumbnail. Okay, so let's talk about this. So this is what's been throwing me off is the market typically doesn't nuke when ETH BTC is strong. So this chart, this is bullish. Like a rudimentary, it's the simplest form of TA. Like this appears to be bullish to me. Like we've been downtrending for a couple years. Like the significance of, this trend line here, like when this thing breaks, ETH BTC should fly, right? But now let's talk about it. And additionally, right, like you kind of have this whole transition zone here where like this was previous demand, like accumulation, we break out, we've retested it, like that's bullish. Okay, so this is a bullish chart. Right now, this is in its current state, it's a bullish chart. It could change, but like it's bullish. Let's go back throughout history here. We're going to put Bitcoin down below, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. All right. Move Bitcoin up. Move to existing pane above. And by the way, guys, if Bitcoin goes to 54, alts are going to get destroyed. Some will hold up, but alts are going to get destroyed. So I don't know if it happens or not, but like I keep an eye on it. All right, so let me remove these drawings. We'll just put this down as wedge. All right, we'll save it. So up top, we have ETH BTC. I'll just put the color light blue for ETH. Now let's take a look at when Bitcoin has been bearish and like distributive, right? So actually, let's start with it being bullish, okay? So when Bitcoin's really gotten bullish, it's been like, we're going to mark out like when things really heated up, okay? So basically actually, what I want to do is maybe let's do this just because let's do this. Sorry, I'm going to redo this here because I'd like you to see more history for Bitcoin. So I can mark out previous cycle all-time highs and stuff like that. So we'll put ETH BTC. I can delete this. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's put ETH BTC down below. Perfect. That's what we want. We'll do candles and we will make it blue. I'll put it in log mode. We'll put Bitcoin in log mode. And then we'll move ETH BTC up. So actually let's move it up so we can have a little bit more room to work with. All right. Cool. So there's ETH BTC with Bitcoin above. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out previous cycle all-time highs for Bitcoin. Man, Bitcoin just flirting with the 56s again. See if we get there on stream. All right, so I'll zoom in here. I just want to get these marked out first. Yeah, we'll probably dip. Yeah, we're about to break 57. Such a shame. I'd love to be able to travel without Bitcoin nuking. That'd be cool. Just once. Just once. All right, so this is previous Bitcoin all-time highs marked out by these black lines, and then you have ETH BTC here. So are we bouncing now? What the fuck is going? Hang on, what is going on here? I thought we were just about to. Yeah, just retested that low. All right, we'll see. We will see, guys. I genuinely don't know if it will hold or not. I kind of don't care. Like, if you're gonna do it, just nuke it, you know. But what do we notice about kind of where we're at here, right? So like when ETH BTC has been bleeding significantly for, you know, months on end, kind of similar to, you know, over here, was bleeding for a long time. You know, over here, I mean, it bled for, you know, for a long time, right? Like this high just bled for so long, right? Recently, we've been bleeding since 2021. I know we've had some bounces, right? But like we've been bleeding for a long time, right? Typically, what you see is when Bitcoin is like global topped, okay? When Bitcoin is globally topped, you will have seen ETH BTC rally aggressively rather than the opposite, right? Like rather than bleeding down. So basically from this point on, and here, actually, let me do this a different way. I actually want to move this back to new pane below just to stay organized for now, and then I can adjust them. It kind of helps to have it on a separate sheet, and then we'll merge them together. Okay. So let's mark out like roughly where we could be, right? So like ETH BTC has been bleeding for a long time. All right, we'll change it to red. ETH BTC has been bleeding for a long time. ETH BTC again has just been garbage for a long time, going, you know, from basically the cycle top all the way to the lows, right around the previous cycle all-time high. You know, again, we kind of find our footing, find our bottom a little bit. I don't know, it's such a big chart, it's hard to show it, right? But what you will have seen after a global top is in for Bitcoin is, I'll show you. So Bitcoin goes parabolic. We're in price discovery. Everything's great, right? ETH BTC will have rallied hard during that same period of time. Like look at ETH BTC over here in, you know, 2016, 2017, 18 cycle. Like Bitcoin went from 1200 all the way to 20K, and ETH BTC went stupid, right? It just went nuts. So again, you know, we will have seen some strength out of ETH BTC when a global top has been put in. All right. So let's keep moving. Let's look at last cycle. Bitcoin goes into price discovery, right? And what did we see last cycle when Bitcoin, you know, was globally topping or distributing? We saw ETH BTC, you know, basically like quadruple, triple. Okay. So again, we saw strong ETH BTC outperformance while Bitcoin was global topping, and Bitcoin is below 57. All right, we'll see how this resolves. So what have we seen this time, right? Like I see people calling a global top here, but in my opinion, ETH BTC just kind of put in like this, or just put in this, where it's like it just kind of found its bottom, or at least at this point it appears like it. You know, like kind of like this, you know, like in this region. You know, so to people that are like, yeah, we've globally topped, I look at it and I go, I mean, we'll entertain anything, right? We'll entertain anything, but if we've globally topped, like ETH is a failure. Like, and I don't even say that in a joking way. Like if Bitcoin's global top is in like a few months after the Bitcoin halving, one, I'd be shocked. Like we already went over that chart. Okay. We typically see turbulence for like 150 to 180 days after Bitcoin halving. Again, we talked about that chart in the very beginning. So if you haven't seen it, you know, maybe go back and look at it. But additionally, at the same time that Bitcoin is in the final innings of its bull market, you see Ethereum and altcoins really outperform Bitcoin, which showing you this chart here highlighted in green, like we've been bleeding since December of 2021. Like it's been down only. Like this ETH BTC has been literally down only since 2021. So, you know, I mean, kind of same thing over here, right? Like literally just down only. And then you get like mania, right? So it's possible this time is different, right? But I'd be shocked if we didn't get an ETH season or an alt season because like we haven't had that yet, and this chart is proof of that. Like it just hasn't happened. So if we want to talk about this time being different, it's kind of a tough thing to do, right? Because you could always just be like, no, this time is different. And then it's like, I can't refute that because it's like, well, if it's different, then it's different. End of discussion. But it would be very surprising to see something like this, right? For a lot of reasons, especially because we have like, I believe we have the perfect tailwind for alt season, which is the spot Ethereum ETF going live, presumably in the next couple weeks, assuming that there's not any more bureaucratic delays. So again, it's like when I went into this cycle, I've identified like I am looking for, I'm looking for, like there's a handful of like high time frame metrics that I will be looking for closely to see when I think it's time to de-risk. And for me, it will be, I want to see ETH BTC aggressively chatting and ripping higher for at least, 2-3 months minimum. And that of course implies like if ETH BTC is performing well, your small and mid cap alts will rise with that, right? We've talked about that at length for those that are not new to the channel. So I mean, my thought is, we're kind of at this inflection point where like we're around where we have been in previous cycles. I would expect, right around the previous cycle all-time high for Bitcoin, like, I would expect, something like this, right? Like ETH BTC up from here and Bitcoin up from here. But, every cycle is in fact a little bit different. So maybe that's not the case. And, I have seen some comparisons to, us being like right here and this being like a prolonged version of the 2019 cycle. Not so sure how I feel about that, truthfully, at this point. Just reading some comments. Not so keen on that being the case at this point, and we can talk about that as well. But I just want to talk about like we haven't seen like the typical like mania phase. I know we've seen like a weird little like there's some celebrities coming into the space and like weird things like that happening, which are kind of historically those have been like top signals. But these are kind of like weird. They're like weird B list, C list celebrities, maybe even lower. You know what I mean? Like they're just, I don't know who's getting a hold of them and like launching coins for them. If it's you, please stop. But yeah, it's like there are some top signals, but it kind of feels like we need like Tom Brady to be back in crypto for sentiment to be that crazy again. Like this, I don't think anybody's like, oh, Iggy Azalea is in crypto. Time to like, like, oh, we're getting frothy. Like I don't. It feels a little different. It feels a little different. Let's see what we're doing here locally. I see some people saying we're nuking. Yeah. We below the May low yet? We're close. We are close. Oh, Pepe, don't do it. Come on, Pepe. Hang in there. So let's take a look at Pepe now, guys. Let me just double check the comments here. Yeah, so slightly concerning, but let's take a look at it. So I view right now like this is kind of your, I mean, not great here, right? So like let's look at percentages, okay? So this previous pullback from March, middle of March to middle of April is about 30 days. Actually, it looks like it was exactly 30 days. It was minus 63%. Pepe being one of the more reflexive coins in the market, obviously very strong buyback. Right now we're down 47%. So if this is just kind of another one of these pullbacks, unfortunately 63% would, I mean, that would be brutal, right? Like that would be big time brutal, right? So the hope is that we don't do this and Bitcoin finds its footing, but of course you have to recognize that it has happened before. I guess it's possible it could happen again, right? But as of right now, we would really like to see, we could extend this a little bit, right? Like maybe if you wanted to view this as like a range, you know, like this was your range high. Here, I'll draw it like this. So our range high broke out, retest, like we're back at a significant level for sure. But whether Pepe holds here or not is going to be pretty contingent upon what Bitcoin does and obviously what ETH does. So, I mean, yeah, look, this is like if Bitcoin breaks through this range, you know, and goes down here into the lower 50s, you know, 54, 55. I mean, Pepe's, you know, it's an altcoin. Like it's going to go down pretty hard. It's going to go down into this region. So, you know, ultimately not what you want to see, but like it is a high beta play to that of Ethereum, right? You guys know that. It's like ETH goes up 1%, Pepe goes up 3, 4, 5%. That's why you love it. And then when you're holding it and ETH is taking a shit, you hate it because ETH is going to go down 20% and Pepe is going to go down 60%. So it's like, I would say this is your kind of must hold level right around here, like this green box. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, right? But definitely disappointing, you know. But it's not Pepe's fault. It's Bitcoin and ETH, right? Like ETH is just, you know, it's going to have to be like an ETF save kind of thing. And it's possible, right? Like so, you know, we could, if we want to try to view this as a range. I don't really view this as much as a range. Like it's all right. It's a decent range. What I'd like to see is like this was strong demand, right? Like we blasted out of this for ETH. I would like to see us maintain this low, right? Like if ETH breaks through this low, it's like, I mean, you've opened yourself up to like down here, right? So what we want to see is like previous demand at least attempt to hold, you know, and then work our way out of it. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, looks like there's some error, right? But we can maybe, you know, I'd like to see this, you know, or if you want to, like that, right? I really don't want to see lower than that. Like this was solid demand for ETH. We want that to hold. If that can hold, then I think Pepe should hold around here, right? Because Pepe has been at this point, you know, the premier Ethereum beta. So, you know, this is what we're going to want to keep an eye out for. All right. Just reading some comments. All right. Yeah, and actually one thing I want to discuss with you guys is so let's cash holding for now. So let's so one thing that's been kind of throwing me off a little bit is here is the NASDAQ, right? So we have US equities literally just ripping face day after day after day. And then on the other side of that, we have Bitcoin. I mean, it's just, it's like you like to think, and there is data that backs this, right? Like there is somewhat of a relationship between US equities, the strength of our US economy, generally speaking, and crypto, right? Like crypto typically performs well or best when, US equities are, well into price discovery and things get really frothy and there's a lot of excess. And right now, in US equities, there's a lot of that. I mean, not so much in small caps. It's somewhat concentrated in like, mega cap tech, but still like the NASDAQ is, I mean, this is up only. You know what I mean? Like this is literally up only. I have it in log mode, like this chart is insane. So you have, all these, all of our parents, all the boomers are getting, richer day after day after day after day. And I'm a little confused on the relationship, right? Because it's not exactly what I would expect. So we're actually gonna, after this, we'll throw up a pair chart of the two, and we'll take a look at it. But there is some similarities in these charts, right? So it's possible we're kind of in just like a really aggressive correction. So what we typically know, and I will show you improve the relationship after, is let's take a look at the NASDAQ, and we'll view this as we could view this as a range right here with little deviation below, perhaps. We'll do the same thing for Bitcoin. I'll turn log off. Right, so it's never going to be perfect, but it's possible that we're kind of in the equivalent of like this correction right here. The NASDAQ does typically lead crypto. Like this might not look like it, but like this was a pretty aggressive correction, especially for equities. Crypto obviously corrects harder. You might be looking at this and be like, it's nothing, 8%, but it's like 8% correction for the NASDAQ is big, right? Like it's a basket of the biggest and best companies. It's got a lot more supportive flows and things like that. So it's an 8% correction on an index in the U.S. Equities market is pretty substantial. So it's possible we could be doing something like this over here. And this is, let's do this actually. So we would maybe view this as like, correction 1, correction 2, and then while it's kind of around the previous all-time high, we get another big correction and then it will bounce out of it, so we will see there. But let's actually, let's do this. Let's pull up Bitcoin USD divided by the NASDAQ. So this is actually Bitcoin paired against the NASDAQ. All right. So what does that mean? For those that are newer here, we'll talk about it. So this is Bitcoin valued against the NASDAQ. So when this chart's going up, that means that Bitcoin is a better hold than holding the NASDAQ. When the chart is going down, means the opposite. The NASDAQ is a better hold than Bitcoin, right? Or it's holding its value or pumping harder, better. So let's take a look at like historically when Bitcoin has really commenced its bull market and what we've seen here. So let's do this. So here is, again, Bitcoin divided by the NASDAQ. Interesting level we're coming into. But let's put Bitcoin USD up on the bottom. Man, Bitcoin with a 56 handle is just not fun to look at. That's okay, though. All right. So let's do this. I'll move this up, make it look a little bit prettier, but let's mark out Bitcoin's previous cycle all-time highs right here. So previous cycle all-time highs, kind of in this region. All right, now let's move this up. You might say the charts look similar, and they definitely do, but you'll see some distinct differences. So the top chart is Bitcoin valued against the NASDAQ, and then the bottom chart is just Bitcoin. And what we're looking for is like timing, okay? So let's draw out now the all-time high breaks for this pair, which is Bitcoin against the NASDAQ. All right. So we're going to put some vertical lines on here to show when Bitcoin like really started to cook. Or actually, we'll just kind of do like a region. Like when Bitcoin was kind of flirting around the previous all-time high. You know what that timing was like until it really blasted through. So marking this out right here. Yeah, it would be like right there. Even a little shorter. Yeah. Something like that. So what we're seeing right here is like before Bitcoin against the NASDAQ goes into price discovery, which is obviously what we want. Like we hold Bitcoin. If Bitcoin wasn't going to outperform the NASDAQ, or we didn't think that, you should just throw all your money into, you know, a NASDAQ ETF. We want this. We want Bitcoin above, you know, ripping higher. You know, we're going to want it up here at some point, and we're in a correction phase right now. So typically what you see before that happens is like the NASDAQ will go into price discovery first. So now let me put NASDAQ down below. This is so much to fit on a little laptop. I'm not used to doing it like this. I'm used to doing it on my giant monitor. But what you will typically see kind of around this phase, actually I might need to put it in log, is the NASDAQ will be like well into price discovery, right? So like here's our red zone where Bitcoin is dancing around doing nothing. The Bitcoin NASDAQ pair is again well underneath its, you know, an all-time high. I can delete this and this and this. The NASDAQ is, you know, clearly in price discovery leading into this. So it leads Bitcoin. The NASDAQ goes into price discovery before Bitcoin, as you can see, right? Everything sells off. NASDAQ in price discovery. Then Bitcoin, you know, joins. So actually, let me just do it this way. This is probably better. So NASDAQ goes into price discovery right here. And then Bitcoin goes into price discovery right here. And I'll do this one in blue for the NASDAQ, I guess. And I'll make this look prettier once we get it marked out. And then I'll do this one in orange for Bitcoin. So NASDAQ goes into price discovery in blue. Bitcoin goes into price discovery definitively in orange. All right, now let's take a look at this last cycle. We'll mark this out as well. And this was weird because of COVID, right? But let's take a look at it here. So NASDAQ goes into price discovery right here. Blue for the NASDAQ, and then Bitcoin definitively in orange right here. I promise I'll make it look prettier. We're just marking this out. So the NASDAQ definitively goes into price discovery. I mean, I would say like right here, right? Like it kind of peeked its head above, but right there. And again, hang with me. I'll make it look prettier. Bitcoin has yet to go into price discovery like definitively, right? Like we're still waiting on it. It's peeked its head above, but like I wouldn't say that it's, you know, absolutely done it, right? So let me now move the NASDAQ up. I'll put some labels on this and we will make it look pretty. So it's easy to follow. All right. So, all right, make that a little smaller. Move Bitcoin up. Okay. All right. Can shorten this up. Hang on, guys. Hope this is making sense. I'm just trying to show like why US equities are so strong right now and Bitcoin is not following. And it's actually kind of what it's always done. Justin Sun, man, what a legend. Justin Sun, man. Just reading a comment. All right. So let's go back here. All right. So I'll label this now just so we can look at it kind of holistically here. So here's Bitcoin divided by the NASDAQ. So Bitcoin paired against US mega cap tech for the most part. Here's Bitcoin USD. And then here's the NASDAQ, right? So we're trying to understand the relationship, like why are all the boomers getting rich and we're sitting here in crypto that's just, I mean, lethargic at best, right? So I'll label this out again, or we'll just talk about it, right? The blue line is when the NASDAQ has, without question, gone into price discovery. I could maybe move this over a little bit here, but I kind of like it here. Like we were above the range, hopefully you guys can see that. And then, Bitcoin later on went into price discovery. And then you can see that the Bitcoin NASDAQ pair went into price discovery as well. Right over here, May of 2020, NASDAQ after COVID bounces hard, goes into price discovery May 20th. Bitcoin didn't join it in price discovery until December 20th. Okay. So very, very different. Obviously, it took, let's just take a measured move, right? So from this time, it took an extra 200 days. It took roughly an extra 200 days for Bitcoin to go into price discovery in 2020 before our bull market compared to the NASDAQ. All right. And how about right here? In August of 2016, the NASDAQ goes into price discovery. It took 266 days before Bitcoin, without question, definitively went into price discovery. I'm not talking about like a little sweep of the all-time high. I'm talking about like Bitcoin is in price discovery. Like we are ripping. All right, NASDAQ is in price discovery here. It looks like both of them took 200 days. So, that could put us again out into August or September, right? Something like this. So everyone's like, why is the NASDAQ ripping? And Bitcoin is so heavy. I don't get it. Well, here's the chart, right? Like here is the chart, Bitcoin against the NASDAQ. All right, here we go. So NASDAQ typically goes into price discovery, chatting aggressively. 200, I don't know when it will be. At the shortest, if it does the same thing as the last two cycles, 210 days, which takes us into August. Latest, potentially September, which is a bummer, right? Wouldn't want to see that. But we talked about that range, right? If we do the same type of movement that we did for Bitcoin between, 25 and 31, it could take us through the whole summer, right? Which was not my base case. That was not what I wanted. That was not what I was thinking, because we have had undeniably, like no question, we have had an expedited cycle, right? Like Bitcoin even went on to make a new all-time high before the halving, which it's never done before. So there were a lot of things. And by the way, like we called that, like we were on top of that. We were seeing the signs of like, hey, things are speeding up, right? It's probably off the back of the Bitcoin ETF being approved, but we were positioned aggressively for an all-time high before the halving, which had never happened before. But I was of the opinion, and I kind of still am, like we'll see how the next few weeks go. That will be very telling, that we will see a bit of an expedited cycle. But if I'm wrong, then I guess we'll talk about the timing of like where I would see this cycle going if my expedited cycle theory kind of dies, which if it dies, whatever. But here's Bitcoin against the NASDAQ, right? Like Bitcoin typically joins the NASDAQ in price discovery 200 plus days later, which is why you're watching Apple, Amazon, Google, whatever, the whole list goes on, making your parents a ton of money every single day. And you're sitting here in Bitcoin. That's just, that's not fun. So if the same thing happens that, the previous two times, then, you're probably in for the rest of the summer being kind of boring and choppy and annoying. Stocks will probably continue to just grind higher and just go chug, keep going. And then, maybe in Q4, Bitcoin joins the party, right? But also like things can change quick. Like if we get some positive news, or maybe the Ethereum ETF inflows are surprising, that can change things for crypto pretty quickly. It really can. Like it can change quickly. Yeah, I don't know. Like bottom is in. I don't know. Like I'm more just kind of like marking out levels and doing high time frame analysis. Like I don't know if the bottom is in. I didn't think we'd go this low in the first place. Like I was looking at 63 to hold. And when we lost it, I was kind of like, well, we need to reclaim that pretty quickly. We got back up to like 63, but it ended up being a bearish retest. So I'm kind of just like, I'm still holding all my positions, you know, and I just, I don't really, I'm not super focused on like lower time frame right now. Like, I think it makes more sense to mark out like, at least for me, like the mode that I'm in is like, I want to identify like a Bitcoin bull market, and I want to position myself to ride a parabola. I don't, I don't want to get too caught up scalping, right? Especially when we're at like a high time frame inflection point, right? Like Bitcoin, Bitcoin, someone said we're pumping. It's literally like 500 points off of a nuke. If this is our range low, right? Which again was not my base case. So like to be clear, I was playing this kind of as our range low, which maybe it could double deviation. But if this is our range, right, and the valid one, I especially don't want to start like trying to scalp and get too cute. Like if this is a valid range low and this holds, this is not the time to start like materially changing your portfolio. Like at this point, we've held through enough bullshit. Like this is awful. Where it's like I'm not repositioning here. Like if we went down to 52, 53, like we're at 57.3. Like me personally, like you can do what you want. If we went down there, for me, like the time to de-risk, like if you wanted to de-risk late, it was probably up here, and there were probably a couple bags that I could have done that with, and I didn't do it. But at this point, it's like on a major American holiday when, typically people like to nuke the chart when Americans are drunk. And 4th of July today, we're seeing a horrible sell-off. Right after a fresh quarterly open, fresh monthly open, and a 6-month open, we're at a high time frame range low, potential range low. I'm not going to start like selling into range low after this. Like if we dip further, it is what it is. Like I still think we're in a bull market. So like we're sitting at a very important inflection point too. Like here's your 200-day MA and EMA, right? Like this has kind of been a solid bull market support, and like we're right around that, like in a bull market going even back to this cycle right here in 2013, like bear market, bounce, lose it, you're in a bear market, chop, 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 reclaim it, retest it on this terrible pullback, deviate below, reclaim, parabola. Same thing here. After this top, you lose it, retest, down only, bear market, then you reclaim it. Look how many times we retested it and rode it all the way up until we finally lost it. Underside retest, bear market. Kind of the same thing over here, right? This was weird, like choppy and stuff like that. But you can see the significance of these moving averages. And also it's like when we finally flip back above it, look at where we held here. So it's like we're coming into, a very high time frame potential range low, if this is a range low. Again, it was not my base case. I don't want to pretend like I called this because I didn't. I was wanting this level like 63 to hold, and it didn't. So if I was playing the range wrong and this is our range low, that's fine. That's a different story. So we're going to entertain that for now. But I mean, you could see something like this, right? Just an awful long, crappy range. Alts are going to probably get eviscerated. I mean, they're already kind of, they've been getting beaten up this entire range. So just saying, like, I don't want to start like scalping and getting too cute and changing my bull market strategy that I committed to 6-9 months ago. And it has treated me well, even if I'm in drawdown right now, while we're at such a critical inflection point, And again, like I'm looking at this chart right here, and like this shows me that unfortunately Bitcoin is a little bit late to the party, typically precisely like 200 to 260 days late to the party. So NASDAQ is at the party. NASDAQ's hanging out, drinking, having a good time, dancing. and Bitcoin is like outside having a panic attack. So I don't know. It's typically a couple hundred days late to the party. But I mean, the good news is, right, like we're already 170 days, 160 days into the NASDAQ in price discovery. So we're through the majority of it, depending on how long it takes. And I think Bitcoin will join the party at some point. I do. I really do. Let me just all right, let me just double check some comments here. It could be the bottom, right? Like I'm not so concerned with calling the bottom. I just want to I want to make sure that if I do make a decision, right, it's not an emotional one. Like I'm afraid to lose all my money. I need to panic sell. If I end up selling, it's going to be based off of, something I missed, or, I wasn't looking at the right way, or something surprising, like a black swan, or, new data, or, something like that. So it's just more about like I'm making high time frame decisions. That's the analysis. That's the investment style I've committed to for like what I believe is this bull market, which is still valid. And I'm just going through the analysis process, and I'm doing it publicly with you guys, where it's like I'm not ready to make any major portfolio shifts at this point, and I'm uncomfortable in drawdown, as most people are, but I'm not going to make an emotional decision, right? Like if there is a big decision to be made, it's going to be, high time frame charts are not looking good. And at this point, even though they look heavy, they're doing, they're doing kind of what they always do, even if it sucks to be in drawdown. Like Bitcoin historically through every bull market has had like 20 to 40% pullbacks, numerous ones before a global top. And we're going to talk about like Bitcoin cycles as well, in terms of like when historically, if we're not in an expedited cycle, when we could potentially expect Bitcoin to kind of resume its bull market and then put in a top. So we'll talk about that as well. Just going to catch up on some comments here, guys. Apologies if you're trying to talk to me in the comments. I can't, I'm on my little laptop. If I was on my big monitor, I'd be able to see the comments while I'm charting, but I have to put it in the background. Max, will you be at the Bitcoin conference this month? I don't know. I'm kind of burned out with traveling, man. Like traveling with a baby is so tough. I don't know. I'd like to go. Like I don't get to hang out with the BB team as much as I would like. So we're all scattered around the world. So it'd be great to kind of get everybody together. But it's definitely tougher with a family to travel so much. So if we don't do that, like I'd like to almost do like a meetup, right? Like all the BB supporters or something. We can all get dinner or something like that, or I don't know. I'd like to meet a lot of you guys, but I might go. I'm not sure yet. All right. What's up, Guardian? Yeah, no more travel. Every time I travel. Oh yeah, and someone brought up DXY, right? So let's add this in as an additional piece of confluence. So like, why is Bitcoin acting like this? Why is Bitcoin acting like this when stocks are just chatting? So down below we have DXY. For those that are unaware of what this is, DXY is the dollar index. It's a basket of currencies, but just think of it as like fiat. Okay. So typically what we see during this phase as well, where the NASDAQ. I wonder if I can put this up on the bottom. Yeah, I can fit that. Let's move it up. It's so much on such a little screen. All right, no, I'm moving it back down, guys. I need my big monitor. It's too much just to squish on there. We're gonna move to new pane below. I can't squish it too much. All right, so just like USDTD, so tether dominance, DXY on a higher time frame also has a negative correlation with risk, being like stocks and crypto. So DXY goes up, it's bad for risk. DXY goes down, all your stuff goes to the moon. So what do we typically see kind of around this phase, right? Where Bitcoin NASDAQ is under the previous all-time high, is not in price discovery yet. Bitcoin, we know, is a couple hundred days late to the party. So NASDAQ, again, you can squint and see right here, goes into price discovery. Bitcoin joins it a couple hundred days later. And what do we typically see after that? We see DXY roll over, right? So another piece of confluence here that, both of these, as the NASDAQ is in price discovery, and Bitcoin then joins a little bit later, DXY puts in a nice little nuke, right? You can see that both times, right? So risk, NASDAQ, mega cap tech, and Bitcoin all chatting. NASDAQ leads, Bitcoin joins later. Bitcoin NASDAQ pair tops, later. And then what we see is DXY, starts working its way down. And if we want to go over to, I might need to open up a fresh chart. Let's just go over here. I'll go over to DXY. I don't remember drawing this range, but I guess I have one. I don't know when I drew this, but here it is. So in my opinion, DXY is, I don't know when I drew this, but it looks kind of nice. But yeah, this is what I was going to draw. So I guess thanks to me for me. I don't know when I drew this. I probably did it on market check or something, but this is a pretty clear range high. And we've got obviously some very prominent lows here. And the way that I view, this chart is, we're doing something like, like this, right? Like this is going to roll over at some point. So it bodes well with, this idea. Where is my last chart? Here we go. That again, we're doing kind of what we've always done, which is like the NASDAQ is ripping, Bitcoin is trying to rip, but not really doing a great job of it. And then DXY is getting ready to roll over, right? So that's, another similarity. Again, so like if DXY rolls over, you should continue to see the NASDAQ rip. You should see Bitcoin rip, but we will see, right? We will see. This doesn't appear to be bullish to me. Like DXY feels like it's just in like the longest, most drawn out complacency shoulder of all time. And also historically, like when the US starts cutting interest rates, which they're expected to do later this year, when they start cutting interest rates, typically DXY goes down aggressively as they're dropping interest rates. So again, it's like I don't really see the bullish catalyst, at least right now. I don't see it. I'm sure someone out there that understands sort of like the macroeconomics behind DXY's higher time frame movements better than me could probably paint you a good picture of it. But I just understand the relationship in the pairs and how typically one thing will correlate to another so that I can position around it. And I understand it well enough to obviously talk about it, but I don't really see with the macro backdrop right now a very likely or probable case for DXY moving up. So I am looking at this going, yep, Bitcoin will be late to join the party like it has been the previous two cycles. So a couple hundred days late. And then we'll see Bitcoin NASDAQ, really start to aggressively move higher. This is something that I find pretty important as well. So I made a video about others BTC the other day. So I'll just do like a quick little update on it. We'll do Bitcoin USD down below. So, I mean, unless Bitcoin just gives out here, right? Then let's do this. Let's mark out the all-time highs again. Well, we're back above 57 for now. It'd be cool if that range low holds. That'd be really fun. Well, it still wouldn't be fun, right? But it would not be fun to go back down below. So we'll see. So here's I'm just going to show the last cycle. If you guys want more on this, you check the last video that I made. But what I want to show is like what typically happens. What typically happens here for others BTC. So this is others BTC up here, and then this is Bitcoin down below. So what this is this is your shitcoin ratio. Like what we want is Bitcoin in price discovery, and we want altcoins, you know, doing this. We want others against Bitcoin, which is just like small mid cap alts versus Bitcoin. We want it moving up. That's when like real money is made in the altcoin market. And that's been kind of my case, is that like we're getting ready for that. But obviously Bitcoin hanging out at range low is not going to provide that. But it likes to do this kind of, this little thing here, this little dance where it's like 1, 2, 3. It did it last cycle too. I'll just show you this one here. You know, bear market bottom for the pair. 1, you know, you can just kind of go 2, and then hopefully 3, right? And the significance here is like we didn't go back to make a new low against our bear market low for this pair, right? This happened during, you know, like right here, this was in June of 2023. So, you know, as of now, we're kind of printing the same pattern where, you know, set our global low, ultra cover, pull back in, you know, retest this significant level, right as Bitcoin is around the previous, you know, cycle all-time high. Actually, in this instance, Bitcoin was like in price discovery, right? Not quite up there, but whatever, you get the point. This time around, you know, this pair is still holding this low, which is good. Bitcoin is not in price discovery yet. It's got quite a bit to go at this point. Definitely have some work to do. Every cycle is a little bit different, but again, we are trying to hold this low for now. So we'll see. But I'm cautiously optimistic still, right? You know, just because again, we're talking about like, look how strong US equities are. Like, let's just look at a couple, right? Like Apple. Like, look at this chart. Like Apple, I mean, you could make the case too that Apple is literally just leading what Bitcoin is doing right now. Like, look at this range that Apple was in. Oops, a little frozen here. Like, look at this range that Apple's in. Like, you could make the case that Bitcoin is literally in this right now. It's not exactly the same, right? But you could make the case that Bitcoin is like down in here, right? So again, Apple is mega cap tech. I don't know. Actually, let me pull this up here. NASDAQ weight by company. I want to tell you guys this right now. So NASDAQ. Okay. So Apple makes up 8.5% of the NASDAQ. All right. That's crazy, by the way. That's just crazy. But it does, right? So if we talk about this chart right here, which is like the NASDAQ against Bitcoin. And then here you've got, you know, NASDAQ and you've got Bitcoin. And we know that typically the NASDAQ leads Bitcoin by, you know, a couple hundred days. So NASDAQ goes into price discovery, which is your blue line. Orange line is Bitcoin goes into price discovery. And again, 200 plus days. We're at like 170. So maybe it takes us out into August or September. Who knows? That would kind of align with the idea that maybe, you know, Apple is just kind of leading Bitcoin here. Like, let's go actually take a look at this now. Don't know why this is flipped. Don't know what these are. So let's look at it, right? If the NASDAQ and Apple's just one company, right? Like there's a lot of companies in the NASDAQ, right? We've got Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, you know, Google. The list goes on and on and on, right? But I'm just looking at Apple because I recognize the pattern, and Apple also makes up, it's the second largest holding, you know, by weight in the NASDAQ. It makes up almost 9%, right? So is it possible that given that, you know, the NASDAQ actually leads crypto by a couple hundred days, which we just talked about, if this is our range, right? Is it possible that that this is on the table for Bitcoin, and Apple basically just showed you what's going to happen for Bitcoin here. Given that, again, the NASDAQ, which Apple makes up 9% of almost, leads by a couple hundred days. And if you look at Apple, is it possible? I mean, that looks kind of similar, you know? I'm just saying, you know, NASDAQ leads by a couple hundred days. Maybe it just beat Bitcoin to this, you know? Maybe this is what we're going to do next. So that's kind of interesting. See, what I said in the beginning is I'm a little out of tune with the charts. Like, I like to look for, you know, little correlations and pairs and like little hidden things that maybe, you know, are not so obvious. Like, everyone knows how to throw a moving average on a chart, but like to really dive into it and understand the relationship contextually on the higher time frame, like I feel like this is what gives me my edge. Is like, now I feel more comfortable, you know, holding crypto even though it's not looking good, at least for now, right? Is that, oh, the NASDAQ still looks really strong. Why is it ripping and Bitcoin's not? You know, oh, is it because the German government's selling? Oh, is it because, you know, Silk Road Bitcoin's being returned? Oh, is it because it's a US holiday? Well, maybe all of that's true, but we're also just seeing exactly what we've always seen, right? Which is Bitcoin lagging the NASDAQ in price discovery by a couple hundred days. And then we go over here and we find the second largest holding in the NASDAQ, you know, Apple, basically just printed the exact same range as Bitcoin did, or is right now, and is now in price discovery, right? So let's see how long it took, right? So from this high that Apple made July 18th and then it sold off, it took, oh man, 328 days. That's a long range. That is a long range. All right. Well, we're going to hope that it's a shortened version of that, because Apple doesn't trade on weekends, right? So maybe it's different, you know. We're just going to assume it's an expedited version of that. All right. We're going to assume, because I don't think it's 300 days. 150 days from this first high to the second high. Bitcoin's was half that. Okay. Bitcoin's was half that. So we're going to cut it in half. If this was, you know, 330 days, we'll say maybe, you know, 160 days. We're going to cut it in half, just like from the first high to the second high. It was half the amount of time, even though it looks similar. We'll assume that crypto, being reflexive and more speculative, can catch a little bit quicker than a multi-trillion-dollar company and the second largest company by weight in the NASDAQ. So, but yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I hope that kind of clicks for you guys as well. All right, just catching up on some comments here, guys. All right. All right. I actually went to an art museum today. It was pretty cool. Usually not like a huge art guy, just charts. But yeah, I went to an art museum today. I don't think I'm the Steve Jobs of our generation. I don't know. I'm acutely aware of what I'm good at, and I'm also acutely aware of what I'm bad at, and I'm pretty self-aware. I don't think that you could compare me to a guy like that, but I do appreciate you being so kind. Peter said, good time to keep buying more alts or wait a little more. I just bought more Andy, Brett, and Caspa. Yeah, I mean, I'm holding all of those as well, actually. But, you know, truthfully, I think you could probably wait a little bit. Like, I don't think there's a huge rush to start aping into altcoins. Here's the thing, like if this range plays on Bitcoin, and here live we kind of discovered the relationship between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ from a timing perspective. And then it's also just really interesting to see how Bitcoin is potentially printing the same range as Apple here. I didn't notice this really until right now. But if this does play, which it's very interesting to see, I kind of hope it does now because we just did this live. That'd be cool. Then the bottom is in more or less, like you're pretty close, and buying alts would be good. But also if this doesn't play and Bitcoin goes to 54, because this fractal could still play and Bitcoin could go to like 54, right? It's never exactly the same. It's close, but it's never exactly the same. I wouldn't advocate that people start aping into alts blindly. Like I would probably wait. I'd probably wait for like a little bit of, you know, a bounce or something like that, or a little bit of confirmation, truthfully. Again, not saying it's bad necessarily, because like I'm still high time frame bullish. Like I really am. I just don't think I don't think there needs to be a rush is what I'm trying to say. Like I think you could probably give it like a week or two, and even if it means you have to buy a little bit higher than here, it probably would be worth missing out on just like that little bit, just to be a little bit more safe, truthfully. But if you're just holding altcoins, like at this point, like if you're holding altcoins, like I don't really see the point right here and just like freaking out and like jeeting completely. I would just, you know, I would give it a little bit of time to try to play out like a fractal like this, like try to let Bitcoin carve out a bottom. And here's the thing, guys, too. I have a feeling that if this is the bottom and like this is going to be our range and it's going to do the Apple fractal that we just discovered here together live, if this does play, what you're going to see is altcoins ripping off of their lows. That will confirm it for me. Is like if Bitcoin just kind of chills out at 57 and continues to hold it roughly like around this level, and you start to see things like Pepe and Andy and Brett and like some of the stronger memes, like the ones that we've been playing here at BB for a while, if they start to like show strength off of their lows, you know, quickly, or like Mog has been really strong recently, like just a lot of like the really strong beta plays. If when Bitcoin chills out here and holds and those coins start ripping and like outperforming Bitcoin on a bounce, that to me says like, hey, the field is becoming a little bit more tilted in the bulls direction again, even at a range low. So watch what altcoins do next. Like, because we are going to get a relief bounce. The question is like, what's that going to look like? If you always get a relief bounce, even if it's on the 15-minute time frame, what does that relief bounce look like? Do altcoins sit there and refuse to join in the fun? Are they quickly sold into? Or does Bitcoin bounce 2% and Pepe bounces 8.5 or 12? You know what I mean? I feel like alts are going to tell you what like, you know, what this is really going to do here. So I don't know, you know, like we're just going to continue to watch it and analyze, right? Yeah, it's also an American holiday, right? Like, you know. Zodiac, why are you so mad, bro? I'm literally just here like casually hanging out charting. I don't know if you're talking about me or somebody else. I'm literally just like I'm sitting here just charting, bro. There's literally no reason to be angry. Like I don't know what you're talking about, unless you're just talking about somebody else and I missed it. I'm just doing my best to help. That's all. If it's not good enough for you, then you don't have to watch. Just doing everything I can. All right. Let's see here. Let me see where there's a volume profile around here. It's got to be. No, that's not where I wanted to see it, but it's not terrible. What about from the high? Yeah. All right. Well, it's possible that 3K gets retested on ETH or not. I mean, here's the thing too, is like for ETH, the entire ETF pump got retraced. Like here's the ETF pump. this was a giant inefficiency. And I talked on Market Check about this. I definitely talked with like my community about this too in the Discord. But like if you draw a volume profile, right? And here I'll rewind the chart before we just backfilled it, right? And I'll go right here. Here's a volume profile. You can see pretty clearly like there is, let's do this, 45, 250, do less, do 100. So look at when we got this was the ETF pump right here, where Bitcoin was consolidating. We get the ETF surprise that it's more probable than not that we're going to get an Ethereum spot ETF, which is kind of surprising to me too. I did not think we would, but here we are. You can see that this is kind of X-ray vision, right? Some people really like to trade with it. You can see that like we didn't spend much time marking up. Like we shot up quick, no volume. Like this is a lot of volume, right? You can see huge volume here, obviously huge volume up here. Right in the middle of the markup, like this was a real absence of volume, right? And we love, for those that trade with volume profiles, that while you're in a range, which technically we're still in, price really kind of has a way of coming back and filling in these inefficiencies and these voids. So obviously, hindsight's 2020, right? But now we've come back in. Clearly, you can see the volume filling in as we're moving down. See where there was none. Now we're slowly filling in. It's a more efficient profile. You can see how it's changing. Clearly, it went from looking completely naked and empty. There was none here to having a very full profile. So just kind of pointing that out that like, although the ETF pump was fun, this was in fact problematic, right? Like this was a little thin. So, we've come back in, we've filled it in, we've retraced the entire Ethereum ETF pump. And, hopefully when the ETF actually starts trading in 2 weeks ish, it's strong, right? Like we get some good inflows and, things look great. And we see this play out again. Oh, all right, Zodiac. No big deal, man. I haven't seen all the comments. I just saw what you were saying. I didn't know if you were talking about me. I was like, I don't know. Yeah, all good, bro. I'm coming back to the US in about a week, a little bit less than a week. So I'll try to post as much content as I can. It's tough to get away. What's going on with Doge? It's the same thing. It's just like it's not going to perform well until ETH BTC starts performing well. It's just a high beta. I mean, Doge is kind of safe now compared to what it was previous cycles. But yeah, Doge. For Doge to perform well, right? Like here, I'll talk about Doge. Let's go over here and we will do Doge USD. Oh, Doge. It's a shame. What are you doing, Doge? So Doge is, it's the king altcoin, right? At least in previous cycles it has been, right? So let's mark out when Doge has performed well historically. So up top we have, I'll make it gold here. And I will do Doge. Go on the 2 week. And then the bottom is ETH BTC. So let's mark out when ETH BTC starts pumping. Put it in blue. Mark out when ETH BTC finds a bottom, or I guess starts pumping, but we'll just do kind of like finds a bottom and then goes on a run in a cycle. So, ETH BTC hasn't really broken out yet. Like I'm thinking that it will, right? But it just hasn't yet. So, Doge, in my opinion, is probably in the equivalent of like this, right? Like it's somewhere around here. I would like to think, it's probably in the pullback. It's never the same, right? But yeah, it's just, Doge will perform well in alt season. And what is alt season? Alt season is when ETH BTC starts ripping higher, right? Like we want to see this. You want to see that? This is not going to give you what you need, right? That's just not gonna do it. So, but I don't know. Like I am bullish Doge. I don't love what it's doing right now, but I am bullish Doge. I just would like, let's see here. I mean, maybe we come back into, Bitcoin holds here, like this should be the low, right? But I don't know if Bitcoin will hold here or not. We need to wait and see. Doge is coming back in. It's right now at the midpoint of the last monthly FEG from this accumulation and then breakout period. So that's interesting, right? We talked about monthly FEGs earlier in the stream. Really, it's got to hold around here, maybe a little lower, but like it should hold, like you don't want to see much lower. Additionally, we have got a nice set of levels right here. Very, very clear levels. Monthly FEG. And look at that, like sucks to see a retest like this, but as of right now, like if you're selling Doge, technically you are selling it into, a high time frame retest of a major accumulation phase. So, alts are pretty beat up here, honestly. Like alts are pretty beat up. Not all of them, right? Most for sure. But I wouldn't, unless Bitcoin breaks down, like if Bitcoin retraces the whole ETF pump or something like that, what would that even be hypothetically? Let's see. 40%. I don't know if I can get behind that. I don't know if I can get behind 40%. Look at this, man. They just want to sell it so bad. They just want to sell it so bad. They just love selling Bitcoin. And my chart's frozen. Don't know why. Yeah, my chart's frozen, guys. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there we go. We'll see. Like we will have to see. Like I don't know what's going to happen yet. I wish I did, but I do not know. But all I can say is when Apple had that weekly close below this range, everybody said it was over. So maybe the same thing needs to happen for Bitcoin here. Like we get like even a weekly, right, below this wick, or it's different, right, because it's a shorter range, clearly. Man, brutal. But here's your hopium, right? Bitcoin, NASDAQ, Bitcoin, USD. Sweep that low, recover. There's one other thing I think I want to talk about. See if we sweep that low, what it looks like. Man. All right, let's look at a few other alts here. Let's look at Sol. Know what this is. Here's how I view Sol. I mean, even though Sol like locally is selling, right? I mean, I look at this right here and I'm just like, I mean, it's holding. You know, like this is a nasty high time frame correction on everything. This is like the simplest goofy little TA, but I mean, you'll get the point, right? It's like just a bullish compression, right? Like we've been peppering this range low. It feels like there's demand here, like 1, 2, 3, now 4. Like, what are we expecting here? It's difficult for me to want to get bearish, you know, like I would. So here, like generally, I look at where we're at right now more closely to here. I'll just make it look the same as the other one. And this is the same for like the entire altcoin market, right? Like you guys know me, like it's been my opinion that like we're going to get alt season soon, which is like crazy to say with how Bitcoin looks, but you know, this was in the summer of 2021. I mean, this consolidated period here when Sol initially, you know, marked up from like nothing all the way until, you know, we marked up here, topped in May, and then didn't really break out again until August, right? We were just peppering these lows, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then we had alt season. I don't think it's ridiculous to see a similarity, right? Like we topped here in like, you know, April looks like, been bleeding, right? All summer doing nothing. So it's like I'm just not of the opinion that like this cycle is over. Like we haven't even gotten alt season yet. You know, and that would be what comes next. So maybe we're just in like this giant, you know, multi-month consolidation, like from when in here in 2021 when Sol entered it, 140 days before it really went on to do impressive things. Right here, it's been 124. So you know, again, could take us to July or August. It won't be the exact same, but you know, again, like locally, I just look at this and I struggle a little bit to be, you know, super bearish because it's like we're just sitting on demand right now and it's ugly. I'm not going to tell you it's not ugly, but like all of this chop, 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 and then markup, retest, like this is demand. That green box is demand. So I don't know, like I'm conflicted, right? You know, I'm conflicted because Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin's at 57. It's sitting at range low. You know, Bitcoin is sitting at range low. We kind of need the Apple fractal to play out because it's like I see a lot of altcoins and they seem and they feel like they could be close to bottoms, but then I'm like, if Bitcoin goes deeper, you know, alts don't know what a bottom is if Bitcoin goes to low 50s, right? They're just going to keep going and going and going. Some will be down 70 or 80%. And then I see Sol here and I'm just like, how could I be like really bearish this chart? Like this just looks like a consolidation. Multi-month consolidation, reestablish value after going crazy, right? After a markup period. So I'm conflicted too. And then again, it's like I go back to the ETH BTC chart and I look at that and I'm like, how could I be bearish like cyclically if I know that Bitcoin doesn't typically have like a high time frame correction if ETH BTC is moving up? And in my opinion, right now, currently, ETH BTC does look like it wants to move up. Let's see, do I have that chart anywhere on here? Lost the chart. Just do it right here. It's like ETH BTC. Put Bitcoin down below. Like here, I don't even need to just keep it in a line. You know, even like even like locally, right? Like let's go to the top of last cycle and look at what happened. Like look at the relationship here. You know, as Bitcoin is correcting, like high time frame corrections for all the tops, right? Like let's mark these out with some dots here, okay? So here's ETH BTC, puts in a peak, you know, after rallying aggressively, you know, and then it marks down while, you know, Bitcoin is marking down, right? Like ETH BTC is aggressively selling off from 0.082 to 0.055, like huge sell off as Bitcoin is selling off, right? Happens, you know, all of last cycle, right? Like here, even like, you know, more local, ETH BTC bleeding as we're kind of locally distributing here. This was actually a big drop counting wicks and stuff like that. And then it didn't bottom until Bitcoin like aggressively went up. But like, let's look even here, right? Like people want to compare it to like a mid-cycle correction, right? So we just did that. We just did that here. I'll remove this. So everyone's the most like popular example that I'm seeing right now is, oh, Bitcoin is like right here, you know, like Bitcoin is in, I'll put some candles on. Why not? People are saying like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is in, you know, the equivalent of, you know, April, May of 2021. Conditions are so much different, right? Like look at what ETH BTC did. Look what ETH BTC was doing when Bitcoin was up here. Like this is your textbook distribution where like you get alt season, Bitcoin's distributing while ETH is just like gig ascending, right? And then things go risk off, right? Like this is not what we've seen, like at all. Like this is what I've been looking for to like go risk off, is like a textbook distribution. I'll remove this. And this was also like a clean, you know, a clean distributive range, like with a nice, you know, nice clean, you know, distribution, bull trap, whatever the hell you want to call it. We had a break of market structure right here, you know, break of structure, retest, you know, and then down. And it lined up with, most importantly, even more important than the trap and the shoulder, was mania, right? Like this was crazy. This was crazy. This was alt season. Okay. So all of this happened right here. I'll mark the brackets out, right? Oops. Like, look at this. I'll remove these lines. You don't need them. So ETH BTC went from 0.03, we'll just say, to 0.08 in like a month and a half, and Bitcoin was distributing. So people right now are telling me like, and yeah, and then like let's look at this too, right? Like we had two distributions this cycle, right? So here was another, the 69K one was really, really clean also. Okay. So what was happening here? Again, ETH BTC, you know, bottom, right? But what did it do? And Bitcoin obviously, you know, put in a big drop there. So maybe we can go back a little bit further and kind of cut it short before Bitcoin really got destroyed. But it still rallied from 0.059 was the bottom to, at this point, 0.076, right? So still a big rally, right? Like percentage wise, ETH BTC rallied from this low while Bitcoin was in its final distribution of last cycle, 30%, right? Like that was impressive, right? And then obviously, you know, here, actually, let me throw up ETH here. Now I'm curious what ETH USD was actually doing at that same time. Candles. I remember these days too when like ETH USD was really strong and Bitcoin was weak. You know, I remember that feeling. I was like, oh wow, ETH is just like the best asset in the world. It's so strong. Yeah, see, this is what we're looking for, is like ETH USD to be strong, Bitcoin USD to be weak, Bitcoin USD like rips, right? That's like, so when people are saying, yeah, we're in this region, I'm like, conditions are so different. Like, look what ETH USD was doing Look what ETH USD was doing last time. So when Bitcoin was in, we'll just go back here. I know everyone's seen the tweets, right? Everyone's claiming like, you know, oh, we're in here, this distribution. It's the same thing. ETH BTC went crazy. It pulled like a 300% move. Then Bitcoin dropped 50%. ETH USD went from 1600 or whatever to over 4,000, right? What's going on right now? ETH BTC just found its bottom. It's not like here, let me just zoom out. Okay. Oops. I'll remove the 69K distribution just because I want to refute the like all the guys that are like, yeah, we're in, you know, April, May of 2021. Like conditions are just so different. You know? Like does this look the same? Like is ETH BTC up like 300%? Is ETH USD in price discovery like, you know, it's gone up 300% as well? Like it just feels like a kind of a lazy example, right? Like let's look at it. All right, let's just do it from like right here when we'll give it the benefit of the doubt, right? So like they're saying that like this would be kind of where we're at, like somewhere around here, okay? Okay, so let's talk about the differences now. Here's ETH USD. So the differences up top, we have ETH BTC. In the middle, we have Bitcoin. Down below, we have Ethereum. What are the major differences? Why are they not the same? One, the structure is not the same. This was a distribution. This, even though it's really heavy, is not a textbook distribution. I'm just saying, like it could break down, but it's not textbook, right? So it would be different. Percentage-wise, right? ETH BTC rallies. It's getting cut off here. Almost 200% in less than 3 months while Bitcoin is in this distribution. So you're getting dramatic altcoin outperformance against Bitcoin. ETH USD went up 230% during that same time period. So Bitcoin is clearly distributing. ETH goes up 230%. Bitcoin's just bouncing around. I mean, it went up from the lows, right? But like it's distributing. And ETH BTC goes up 176%, right? Like clear alt season. Clear alt season, right? And at the same time too, like I could put up others, which is all your small and mid cap altcoins. We'll take another measured move. This one's going to be crazy, I bet. So this is small and mid cap altcoins. Okay. Let's see how much they went up. During that time period, they went up. Make sure I got it measured correctly. Almost 237%. The index, right? Like the index. Oops. Like that's crazy. This is an index. This is an altcoin index. It went up 237%. Okay. So actually, I'll get rid of ETH and we'll keep that. I like this better. Okay. So to everybody saying like this is where we're at, I'm looking for it. You know, I'm looking for it. You know, if this is really where we're at, even though it's nothing like it, you know, conditions wise, ETH BTC went up 176%. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt and measure from the low right here. It's up right now 19%. Okay. So would you consider that to be mania that leads into like major, you know, high time frame distribution for Bitcoin? No. What have others been doing? Right? How are small and mid cap altcoins doing? Because during May, you know, April and May of 2021, where people have been saying we're at, small and mid cap altcoins went up 237%. What have they been doing right now? They're down 43. Right? So conditions conditions are nothing like April and May of 2023, or I'm sorry, 2021. Like they're nothing like it at all. So to me, it just kind of feels like it. I mean, honestly, like even if we break down it does feel like a bit of a silly example where like the context is not the same at all. It's the exact opposite, right? Like what we're actually seeing right here. So everybody like remember this, okay? Where if people want to say we're in the final distribution here, just like we were in April and May of 2021, like small and mid cap altcoins are doing the exact opposite of what they did, as is Ethereum and ETH BTC during that time, right? Like it's not the same. What we're actually seeing is much more comparable not to this period of time, something like this, like right over here. Okay, so what we saw, if we're trying to find some parity and some comparisons, here's small and mid cap altcoins, here's Bitcoin pulling back, right? Here's ETH BTC. What we actually saw over here in August of 2020 was small and mid cap altcoins went down 33%, which is like what we're doing right now. Bitcoin, went down 20%. Okay. And ETH BTC ever so slightly was like kind of moving up during this time. And then ultimately it like pulled back again, right? Before real mania began. But like this is honestly what we're seeing a lot. Like this feels a lot more similar, right? Is like these are the conditions of pre-bull market, not like the very end of the bull market. That's the difference. Like we're not, in my opinion, we're not over here. Like we're seeing a lot more similarities to this, like in this region. All right. So anyways, I hope that makes some sense. Like I've just seen that comparison a lot, and like the conditions are entirely the opposite. Like I don't know. I get it. It's easy to like slap a range on here and just be like, oh yeah, like we're gonna nuke. But the conditions are just not. I mean, here, look at here's Bitcoin. Let's do this. Others dominance. Look at what happened for others dominance, which is small and mid cap altcoins represented as a percentage of the total crypto market cap. Like when Bitcoin was distributing up here, look at what others dominance was doing. Altcoins were going crazy. Look at what they're doing right now. Does that look like altcoins are going crazy to you? Does that look like alt season? Does this look at all like the end of a bull market or like a high time frame corrective period? Does that look at all the same? How could you even compare that? Like conditions are not the same. Like look at that. Like if anything, this is where we're at. Like if anything, we're in like first big bull market correction right here, like which is what we had when others dominance was bottoming. Like this was a 30% correction right here. Well, others dominance was bottoming. And then we went on and it took another, from this point, 133 days for Bitcoin to actually distribute. So it's like people are telling me that like it's the same as over here. And I'm like, how? Like, unless altcoins just don't matter, but we just got an Ethereum ETF, like altcoins clearly do matter. Like I want to see this. Like this will tell me, and then when we're up here and shit looks heavy for Bitcoin, then I'll say, okay, now we've had froth and mania and excess. Iggy Azalea making an altcoin and Jason Derulo or whoever the fuck making an altcoin, like that alone doesn't determine alt season. Like that's not alt season and mania. Like this chart right here going up is. So unless this time is just entirely different and altcoins don't matter, which I don't agree with, then we're not over here about to nuke 50% because we haven't had, others' dominance triple. It doesn't have to triple, it could double or whatever. But like we haven't seen alt season. And it's like, so are we not going to get an alt season? I guess like the real argument here could be like, yeah, we're in a very prolonged version of like June of 2019 and like we're about to get COVID, like this. That would basically put Bitcoin like over here, in October of 2019, which I don't agree with either. Like the Bitcoin halving was over here. Like we're post halving now. Like we're post halving. This is post halving for Bitcoin. Like why would we be right here? Share another one with you guys. So if this is not going to be a prolonged cycle and this is the same as every other one, let me throw the halvings on here. Bitcoin does the same thing every single time. So here's the Bitcoin halvings and here's some time-based fibs between each halving. So the 0 is at the halving and then the 1 is at the next halving and then the 0 for the next set is at this halving. And then again, we've got the 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75 in between. Bitcoin global bear market bottoms, blue zone, climbs up into the halving. Obviously little corrections and stuff along the way. Then you get your gray zone and then you peak between the 0.25 and 0.5. Then we go on, global bottom between the 0.5 and 0.75. And then we climb up, blue zone, into the second Bitcoin halving. Again, same thing. Climb up aggressively in the gray zone. Again, same thing. There's corrections along the way. It happens. It's totally normal. Like these don't look big. Like these are like 40% corrections, these little things. Global top between the 0.25 and the 0.5. Global bottom between the 0.5 and the 0.75. Again, same thing. Next cycle, global top between the 0.25 and the 0.5. Global bottom FTX between the 0.5 and the 0.75. Where are we at right now, guys? If history is any indication, we are somewhere right in here. And the top should be somewhere, honestly, in like Q3. I mean, it could be anywhere in the red zone, right? So like, we'll even just say end of Q1 to sometime in 2026. But pretty spooky little pattern there. So yeah, like I just haven't seen the froth. And also I would say I've seen some comments like I think that we have seen a lot of pain, you know? Like I think we have seen quite a bit of pain. Maybe not enough. I'm not the judge of that, but I would say we have seen some pain. Yeah, guys, I've been going for about 2.5 hours, so I'm gonna call it here, guys. That was a long stream, but all right, guys, thanks so much for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Before you go, if you could please consider liking the stream, helps boost the channel, and also subscribe if you're new here. Normally we're live 5 days a week. I'm traveling right now. I'll be back in less than a week, so we'll get back to the normal schedule. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna go get some dinner soon here, I think. But yeah, I wanted to pop on here and hang out with you guys. And I know people are pretty fearful right now, and it's not fun, but hang in there, right? Like if it was easy, everybody could do it. And the toughest part of this game is the mental side. And your brain has a way of playing tricks on you when it's fearful. So That's why I like to do this. I like to come out here, and I'll never be perfect, no question about it. I'm wrong all the time. Most traders, they are. But it's just about sharing ideas and trying to kind of all collaborate and work together to solve one of the most intricate puzzles in the world, which is navigating financial markets. So hopefully your mind is more clear than when you first joined the stream. If not, sorry. But yeah, I'm gonna go get some dinner, guys. Thanks so much for being here. But yeah, I'll see you guys in less than a week. All right. Please like the stream before you go, and everybody have a great 4th of July if you're celebrating. And if not, just have a great rest of your Thursday. Take care.